Hello, Marvina.
Hello, Renee. How are you?
I am well. How about you?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain. I cannot complain.
There we go. All right. Here we are in April. Can you believe it? This this year's flying.
I know we were just talking about Christmas and New Year's and the new thing we were gonna do in the new year.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just I can't believe that we're here.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. And
It
it's
is.
they say that, retirees have a lot of time on their hands, but go ahead, give me the eye roll. Go
I
ahead.
did. Whatever. OMG. But
Oh, yeah. They
yeah,
say you have all this time, but it's like, man, my day is gone. I'll be doing
yeah.
some stuff and it's gone. So it's just the time is just flying by. So
Right, right.
yeah.
It is. It is.
So yeah. So
Ah,
yeah, so here we are at episode 34.
34.
34.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk today about have you been robbed?
Okay.
And there's a scripture, John 10:10, and we've used this many, many times. The thief does not come except to steal and kill and destroy. But I
Mhm,
have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly.
mhm,
And that's I had a circumstance where I was with someone who has been a longtime Christian,
mhm.
but extremely uh, joyless.
I was gonna say careful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. They may
Okay.
be listening. Is
Okay.
extremely joyless,
Okay.
And I was thinking the other day, it's like, man, as a Christian person, now don't get me wrong, there are going to be times when things happen and we're overwhelmed maybe but we should
Mhm.
always have that joy of the Lord, knowing that He's our stability, He's our foundation, and that if we
Right.
have to get through something, He's going to be with us when we're going through it.
Right.
Um, so I started to think about Christians
Mhm,
who, if Jesus says, I've come that you'd have it more abundantly, I've come, and he's told us this is the intent of the enemy,
mhm,
but this is my intent that you have life more abundantly.
mhm,
I was thinking, if you've ever thought about when a person is robbed,
mhm,
okay, they identify what the thief has stolen.
mhm,
Maybe a police officer, a detective, somebody will come to your home or come to wherever you're at and say, what was taken?
mhm.
And you are quick to put down the large, big screen TV, my clock radio. I don't know if people still use those, but you know what I'm saying? My laptop, my aunt's silverware. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you will identify anything that was stolen
Right.
because your intent is to recover those items
Mhm.
and to establish the thief's guilt, right? To bring
Mhm.
him into accountability.
Right.
So, my thought was, in a spiritual sense,
Mhm,
if we find things missing in our lives, if Jesus has said, I've come to give life in abundance, then
mhm.
that should mean peace, joy, assurance, faith, trust, right? If we find that we're missing some of those things, I think it's important that we identify what that is.
Hmm.
I haven't been joyful for quite some time. I haven't really been putting
Oh,
my
excuse me.
trust in the Lord in these difficult economic times.
Right.
So I think it's important, especially now when things are a little bit more uh, unsure, unsteady, that
Yes.
we start looking at, why don't I have joy? Why don't I have peace?
Right.
Well, chances are, because in John 10:10, the Lord said, the enemy wants to steal that from you.
Right.
So we need to go, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to identify it with the purpose of recovering that
Mm-hmm.
and bringing the thief to accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. When we do get in that place where, like you said, we're not experiencing joy, peace, hope, we need to take inventory. Like you said, we need to take inventory and see where is the enemy, where in our life, take inventory in our life, right? And where in our life can we identify where the enemy may be just kind of running rampant, or even in our minds, right? Because once we get into that defeated place, if we're feeling defeated, to I I think it's because our focus is not on the Lord, right? Meaning our faith is being tested. Our faith, if we know that God says, I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. If I'm not experiencing joy, peace, hope, then I need to look, like you said, where these things are being taken. It's being siphoned off somewhere,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
being robbed. And sometimes you may be being pickpocketed, right? You don't even realize what's going on because your focus is here and you have somebody who's behind you,
Mm-hmm.
picking your pocket or whatever. You're taking, your purse, it just to put it visually, but that is very true. We have to stop and take inventory and say what's going on. And that should be, you know, one of the first things we do. If that's what you're feeling, stop, take inventory, and to determine where the enemy is coming in and taking that,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then we have to look to the word of God to strengthen us. And I think sometimes um it's that when we're not in a place where where our focus is on God, because I think that's when those things creep in, when our focus is a little bit off. And I'm not saying that, you know, God is not in your life or that he's not very present. It's just that your focus may be a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's easier for these things to creep in. It's funny, a friend and I have been having conversations just about um some things that we've been watching or listening to, or
Mm-hmm.
you know and those can kind of slowly creep in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are things that you should not be entertaining, maybe, or and I'm not yeah, exactly that. Things that maybe you shouldn't be entertaining, right? That's one of the ways the enemy comes in and robs from you. Um
Mm-hmm.
being in a crowd that you shouldn't be in, hanging with a crowd of people, because what happens is you're not with like-minded people. You're
Right.
not with you're being filled with things that are not of the spirit. And so um
Mm-hmm.
that darkness slowly creeps in, and then that's, a lot of times that's when we're in those places of being hopeless and not having any joy. And so when I say take inventory, that, look at how are you moving through life, what are some things you've been focused on, or what where has your attention been,
Right.
you know
Right. Yeah. And it's important. I think I missed one step. You take inventory and then you make a report, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yep.
in terms of this, it's where you tell the Lord,
Yes.
I am not experiencing joy, because you can
No.
think all day on your own. What
Yep.
is it? But you need God's Spirit to show you what that is that's
That's
stealing
right.
it, you know?
That's right.
I think, there's nothing worse than a Christian when you say, how you doing? Oh, I'm just getting by. I'm just getting by. It's like,
Right.
oh, well, everybody's going to want a piece of that.
Right.
What church do you
So
go to? I'd
true.
love to come,
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's just really important, if we're meant to live in abundance,
That's right.
certainly don't resign yourself to the loss.
Yep.
Well, these things have happened to me, and so, I just don't have joy. That's He
Right.
doesn't say I give it to you more abundantly, but if you've had a tragedy or a trauma or a
Right.
setback, then I understand you won't have joy.
Right.
He's saying, I've given it to you
Yeah.
abundantly, but it's a
Mhm.
matter of, we have to just identify what spiritually bestowed gifts have been stolen, and then
Right.
express that to the Lord, our desire to regain them.
Yes.
Here's
That's
what I want.
right.
When I went through counseling, that was one thing that I did with my counselor. I walked in and she probably never had this happen before. I had a list. Here's where I am. Here's where I want to be.
Okay.
And it was perfect because she knew exactly, okay, this is the direction we want to go. This is how
Mhm.
we're going to make steps now to get there. And the same thing with the Lord. I think you
Right.
have to say, my joy is gone. I don't know
Yes.
why. Please
Right.
identify where that was pickpocketed
That's right.
or stolen, and then help me to either move beyond that
Mhm.
situation or that occurrence. But it's
Mhm.
important that we express that to him, that we want that back,
I agree.
you know?
I agree. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's amazing how quickly God will answer as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, when you ask, he will open up doors and he will show you exactly where it's at. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not even where it's a fight for you, meaning because of his grace, he eases us into it, kind of, it's not like, again, take myself, as 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 an example, removing things that out of my life that God has been saying that you need to limit this, you need to remove this. I'm like, at first it's like, I know God, but it's just so good. And then because you're seeking after God and you notice your spirit man is suffering, or
Mm-hmm.
you're not quite as joyful, you're not, and then when God shows you, because God knows our true desires. That's what I'm so thankful for too, is because I believe, God sees beyond our mess. And I do believe that we have a true desire. He knows we have a true desire to be happy, to walk with him, to be joyful. And so he will bring us to that point. But we have to be willing to go with them,
Mm-hmm.
um, or be willing to open up to the spirit and then be willing to take his direction, because he will
Right.
show us. We have to be willing to take his direction. And until we put those instructions in play, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
still be here, or we're going to continue to return here. It's not until you make the decision that you're going to do what God is saying you need to do you get
Right.
that. but he will help you get through that. And you can ask God even that, God, help me to, I'm having a hard time with letting this thing go, or removing this thing, removing this person. I'm having a hard time being removed from this group. I'm having a hard time, Lord. I need for
Yeah.
you to help me. And God
Yeah.
will, he changes circumstances all the time. We
Right.
just got to ask and be open enough to the spirit to follow the direction that he's given us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one of the things, and people might not tune in again after I bring up this subject. Uh, but I touched on it just a second ago where people are financially scared to death. I have people that I talk to, and it's like, we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going to happen with the state of the world and finances, but if that's your fear as a Christian, if
Right.
that's your fear, if Satan has taken your trust away,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would say that what you have to do is, and again, this goes back to what you just said about responding the way God has asked you to. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to touch on is tithing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people now, I just don't have the money to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Groceries are up, but God says in his word, I will provide. Trust me, put me to the test. Give me that percentage that
Mm-hmm.
I've asked for.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do with the you can do with the 90%. Let's see how am I doing? You'll be able to do with the 90%
What you
like you
want.
had 100%,
Right.
if I'm
Right.
saying that
Yeah.
correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really important right now when
Mm-hmm.
we're at the point where we're starting to doubt and
Mm-hmm.
we're losing our trust and our focus. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, find those things, and I bring that up
Mm-hmm.
specifically because of financial situations.
Mm-hmm.
Find what God has said in his word,
Right.
and that's the answer you need to put into play. And I can honestly say,
Mm-hmm.
I've had those conversations with the Lord. In fact, I just had a conversation with him uh, the other day, and I actually went to a pastor and I said, I had some money come back from a life insurance policy.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, well, I already tithed on the money that paid those premiums. So I
Okay.
was trying to look any way I could, right, to get out of it,
Okay.
right? And so I talked to this pastor and he says, well, let me ask you a question. He said, they were unexpected funds, weren't they? And I said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they were. He said, was that a blessing from the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
And I went, yes, sir. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think especially in this area of trusting the Lord through
Mm-hmm.
these times that are so can be so volatile and they fluctuate, find those things that he's already asked us to do.
Right.
And if we're in a situation where my finances are out of control and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and he's saying to you, okay, first of all, are we following that principle?
Mm-hmm.
First of all. Second
Mm-hmm.
of all, are you being a good steward of your money? Or are you running out and buying this and buying that? What's bringing the
I'm
frustration?
frozen.
You're frozen?
Yes, because I didn't want to hear
I'm going, no, the
the
internet's up. I know
shopping.
it is. But if that's an
No, but it's
area that
true.
somebody's struggling with,
I
it's
agree.
kind of like, okay, what
I
you're
agree.
identifying it.
Yep.
Okay, so what are the elements that are playing into the loss of trust and the loss
Right.
of confidence that you're going to be okay? Yeah.
That's right. And I'm glad that you touched on that because I do, and because you're right. tithing is it's a touchy subject, you know, for some,
Mhm.
for many, or you know, for some. Um, and I will say, like, I remember, you know, when my kids were growing up, and I was, you know, as um my walk was strengthening with the Lord, and you know, where we were we're trying to make ends meet and all of this, and I remember having that struggle,
Mhm.
and because I knew what God wanted me to do. And I'm like, God, I just don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm barely making it now. How are we gonna 10%? I
Mhm.
know 10% in comparison to 90% doesn't sound like a lot, but when I gotta take it out my check, Lord, I'm like, you know, but
Yeah.
I had to, and what I had to do, and I'm not saying that this is gonna work for everybody. This example is meant to this example is meant to say, or to show, take it to the Lord, and the Lord will get you to where you need to be,
Right.
because he knows our heart. And so I remember, you know, praying, and God, this is my desire, and I want to tithe, and I don't want to do it begrudgingly, and I just don't see how, you know, I'm going to do it. And for me, well, God took me through, well, I won't say God took me through, because God says what he says. I started with baby steps. I'm like, okay, God, let me start here. And then I increased it until I got to where, you know, I was supposed to be. But even when I started, I know that God, he blessed it. When I look back now, you know, and I talk to my kids, and they're like, we never thought we were having a hard time. I was like, if y'all only knew."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
what? You
Yeah.
know? Um, but God, because again, he knows the desire of our heart, he will get you. He wants our obedience. And
Yeah.
so through that, he will bless you. And I say, if you're having an issue with tithing, pray and lay it out in front of the
Mhm.
Lord. Again, like you said, you know, you're going to have to take the steps that God is telling us to take. But he, he will get you to where you need to be. You can't keep ignoring it, is I guess is my whole point. You can't keep ignoring it. And if you're worried in your finances, again, your focus has changed, and your focus is not, your faith has to kick in. But
Mhm.
sometimes we know where we're not obedient. It's just like our children, our nieces, our nephews, right? When they're younger, you could just see it all over their face, the guilt. You don't even
Oh,
know that they haven't done what they're, you know, you don't even know that they've
yeah.
done something or haven't done something. And then, but then they start moving a little bit differently, and you're like, come here,
Yeah.
let's have a talk.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you're right. And God has, really blessed me in my life. Um, since I made that change. I mean, he always blesses us, but there's a different grace or something that comes with being, with your finances, when you are in line with what God is with what God is saying, and with what God is doing. And and even with my shopping, I've been working on it. But because that is, you still have to be a good steward
Yeah.
over your finances, over, your time. Um we have to be good stewards. And that's what took, when I was saying, like, yeah, you could probably be doing something else instead of watching that. Real, I have to be
Yeah.
a good steward of my time.
Right.
Um, but you're right. It's not something that we can ignore. God tells us to do it, and you could like it or
Mhm,
not. You could agree with it
mhm,
or not. It's not going to change anything. God said what
right,
he said.
right.
So, um, you know, um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I will I agree with you, with giving back to God. And I mean, he's brought me through God has just really opened doors. And I'm just so thankful um, because I remember, being there and the struggle and worrying about my finances and,
Mhm,
God, I don't know what's going to happen. What if this happened? What, it's just, and it weighs on you heavy and it steals your joy.
mhm,
It
mhm.
steals your peace.
Yeah,
It steals your hope.
yeah,
It does all of that.
yeah,
And so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, like I say, that's not a real popular topic, but it
Right.
does, but the finances, like you say, affect so much of
Yep.
our lives. And I think
Really does.
when you're confident that you're doing what God has asked, um, if something happens with the
Mm-hmm.
economy, I still know because if we've built that, I'm going to be okay.
Yep.
God is going to take care of me.
Yep.
Maybe it'll look different than it looks
Yep.
today,
That's
but
right.
he is going to take care of me. And I think that's a
That's
lot of
right.
people right now, especially Christians, are in that place where, well, what if this? What if this? Well, if you've
Mhm.
made that your foundation, that
Mhm.
God has asked me, he's promised, I'm going to
That's
stand
right.
on that, then
That's
whatever
right.
comes,
That's
you're going to
right.
be able to withstand. And you're right. Your joy will increase because you
Mhm.
have that confidence. Your
Mhm.
peace will increase because you have that confidence.
Mhm.
So,
I
yeah,
agree.
I think it's just, I think that's just
Yes.
one area that
Right.
could be, looked at. And
Mm.
then, again, just if you've been through things, circumstance, we all go through circumstance, and yeah, you can be depressed, you can be overwhelmed.
Mhm.
But if we realize, okay, no, I, that's been my joy's been stolen, I want it back.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just think about if your laptop was stolen, you
Right.
would want it back.
Right.
And
Right.
you would be hounding the police every day. Did you get it? Did you
Right.
get it? I want my
Right.
laptop, it's got all my stuff on it. I want it.
Right. Right.
So, that's the same thing with us, is that just figure out what it is in you
Right.
that is lacking, that has been uh, uh, taken from you,
Right. Right.
and just say, I want it back. I
Right.
want it back, Lord. I want that confidence. I want to be able to say that no matter what, I
Mhm.
know you're my foundation. I know you're there for me. I know I'm going to make it through, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
and he
think,
will do it every time.
yeah,
He'll answer. He will answer.
yeah. And
Mhm.
like you say, we have to be willing to take the steps necessary that he's saying, okay, like you say, okay, that friendship is not doing you any good.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
I know I need to step back, or that
Right.
activity, or
Right.
that, yeah, or that,
Right.
it's not doing you any good.
Right.
So, I think once we can get to that point where we trust that whatever you ask us to do is the right
Right.
thing for us, and then we can walk in the abundance that you've promised us.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. I totally agree. You mentioned like being overwhelmed. One of the things I've had to do is kind of step back from some things and look at am I doing this because God is having me to do this?
Mm,
Or am I
mhm,
doing this out of um obligation to someone
mhm,
else or to something else? Or
right,
I've had to look at that's where a lot of times I've had to take inventory and look at, because I'm like all over the place, and I'm always all over the place. But I feel so overwhelmed and like overburdened.
Yeah.
It's not just the busyness, I feel heavy. And so then I have to look at, okay, God, what is it that I'm doing that you would not have me to do? Because I can't even, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't move. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm coming or going. And I'm not saying that life is going to be comfortable every day. It's not. Life is going to be, it's going to keep lifing, but
Yeah.
we shouldn't be so weighted down to where it takes our joy. If it
Right.
is taking your joy, you gotta take inventory, see where it's being taken, make a
Yeah.
report, make a report so that what's missing, and so that we could start looking for it, and
Yeah.
so I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just bring the enemy into account. Bring that
Yep,
thief into account and say,
yep,
no more. No more.
no
You've had it
more.
long enough. You never should have had it. It
Yep,
wasn't yours to have,
yep.
you know,
Want
and
it back.
that's right. Oh
That's
man.
right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some good
Yeah.
food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of maybe as we go through the week, just kind of think,
Yep.
you know, I'm not going to say patience because that's always the patience when you're on the road. Don't ask for patience when you're driving. He'll put some knuckleheads in your way.
And then that's when you have to extend grace, remember?
Oh, yes, there's our grace episode. Yes. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So that's something I've just been thinking about. It's just, we need to
Yeah.
identify. Let's take some stuff back that's been taken from us that was meant to be
Right.
ours all through this walk.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm with you.
All right. There we go. Well, you got anything else for us?
I don't.
Okay. Well, let's call this a wrap.
All right. Until the next time.
Until the next time. All right.
All
You
right.
take care.
You too, Renee.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye.